Hi everyone, this is Allan McKay. Welcome to episode 68, which is just a snippet of a live webinar I did recently, talking about money, bidding, and a whole lot of industry stuff. A lot of great insight. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Allan McKay podcast. Allan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Allan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Allan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on allanmckay.com.
Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to this latest episode. I'm really excited to put this one together. I kind of feel like I say that a lot about all my episodes, but I guess it's true. I'm excited. This episode is going to actually be a bit different, and what I wanted to actually do was do a follow-up originally to the last episode, which was about shifting careers, making that career transformation, and I will follow up soon about that. It's such a big subject. I've literally emailed in the past 2 weeks, I think, to the Inside Circle. I actually Googled this because I wanted to see what the average wording of a book is, and I guess most novels are around 60,000 words, and I emailed 70,000 words. So I actually emailed a book of information about transforming a career, how to move strategically from one career to the next. And the thing is that was just the tip of the iceberg. I actually kept taking things out because I'm like, oh, if I talk about this, that's a whole other thing. And what I want to do, and I'm kind of disclosing a lot here, but what I'm basically planning with the Inner Circle, which is my email list, which I got to say, up until now, everything I do is all on that list. If you're not on there, then I kind of feel like I'm just so quiet these days because I'm putting all of my effort 24 hours a day into that and into working with my students inside my mentorship and the live action series. So literally my entire life right now is all devoted to that, which has been pretty amazing to spend the last 2 years doing that. And of this past year, I've actually said no to pretty much all the production work. It's been a different journey for me. I've been supervising shoots, I've been producing a lot of projects, but in terms of working with clients, I've pretty much just had to say no to everyone because, for instance, yesterday, I literally spent an entire day from 8 in the morning till I think it was 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night writing an email, but writing literally this big email, a book pretty much about transforming your career. I'd spend half a day doing it, and then I'd spend half a day just trying to find ways to make it as short and to the point as it can be. So it's just been brutal, but it's been really interesting doing that. And I've now received a couple of hundred responses just from people emailing me about, each of those emails. But what I'm trying to do is, after I mentioned this last week, was surveying literally, I forget, it was over 100,000 people, finding out what everyone's struggles are, what everyone's kind of dealing with. It was really insightful for me to kind of start to see all the commonalities. What are the most critical common things that we deal with? And I feel bad for my assistant who literally had to go through and read all the emails I got, and it wasn't just polls or anything like that, but actual personal responses, and go through and really kind of help me kind of build up what are the core commonalities that we have, everyone has these issues with. And it's been pretty interesting. But step one for me was that I wanted to help everyone who's kind of more in wanting to move in their career from wherever they are right now into working in visual effects or working in a creative field, because I don't want it to be, and I don't feel like it is, just people in visual effects. This is people who want to be artists, to sell their work, or they want to work in video games, or they want to do design, motion graphics, or whatever it is, animation. It isn't just one specific field. So this has been really cool just to kind of initially work on that as the first step, because I kind of feel like there are a lot of us who are, let's say in their late 20s or, early 40s even, somewhere, let's say between 29 to 39, just generalizing here, but that kind of category where we want to be passionate about what we do. We want to really get up every morning and be excited about going to work and being challenged and being stressed as well about what we do, but in a way where we know that it's worth it. that the contributions we're making are towards something that we're really excited about. It isn't about like going in, clocking in, doing our work, doing the minimal effort, getting our paycheck, and then trying to find some fulfillment outside of what we do. And there's a lot of statistics. I started reading a lot about this recently, which I kind of feel like a lot of the generalized stuff I kind of don't care about, because I base it on my experiences of helping others in my industry, and I base it more on that. And so I can easily say, oh yeah, 2/3 of our industry feel that way, but it isn't about that. It's about what I've experienced firsthand with now literally tens of thousands of people that I've been helping and working with over the past 20 years with their careers, as well as working within this industry. So it's been kind of cool just to kind of get a lot of people on board there, where initially I kind of feel like that's phase one, is everyone who's kind of wanting to shift careers into a more creative field. This is a chance to be able to do it. And I feel like a lot of us who aren't being fulfilled, who want more out of our career, who want more out of our life, are in a special situation, because we have responsibility, we have bills, family, all these other things, all the accountability that we have from other people to stay consistent in what we're doing. So we can't just like throw in the towel and go do something else. Whereas a lot of us who are younger are kind of more in that kind of figuring things out mode, and there's less caution to what we're doing. So because of that, we need to be a lot more strategic and a lot more careful about how we switch careers. And this is something that I like I said, wrote a book pretty much in the past couple of weeks, going through a lot of the strategies that I've seen work. Not stuff that, you read in a magazine and thought, that sounds plausible. Is this stuff that I've seen work, and I've seen people be able to switch. Even as old as in their early 50s, I've seen some people completely change over to working in matte painting or working in different industries related to film. And it's really cool. I find it really inspiring when I meet someone and it's just like, wait a minute, you've been doing this for only 2 years? Like, wow, that's it's holy shit, that's amazing. Just because they've decided, you know what, I was doing carpentry, I was doing accounting, I was doing something else. I didn't find it fulfilling, and I decided to do this instead. Actually, one of my friends just decided to quit 3D and go pursue acting in his early 30s. So, there's that as well. So I wanted to do that because I feel like the next phase is covering how to break into the industry. And I feel like a lot of what I'm going to be covering in the next couple of weeks is going to be related to that. Okay, so a lot of the emails I'm sending out, a lot of videos I'm putting together, a lot of PDFs and other things, all of this is going to the inner circle. It isn't something that, at least right now, is publicly available. And if you want to get access to the emails I have been sending out, I'm going to be working on a few things that, you can sign up and get all those older emails, like the ones from the past 2 weeks that you might have missed out on if you're like, hey, I want information on switching careers rather than specifically all the later stuff. But I wanted to get everyone up to speed there because I feel like there is a lot of correlation between breaking into the industry and switching careers once we get over the career switching part. So that way, once everyone's up to speed there, we can kind of all go through and catch up everyone who wants to break into the industry. And then from there, it'll be more about people who are in a certain field, but they want to kind of switch. But more importantly, I kind of feel like once we have those two categories covered, everything that we move forward with, it's more like, okay, you've been working in the industry for 5 years. That's great. Well, these are all the tools that hopefully you're going to say I'm already doing, but a majority of them I feel like you're probably not doing right now. And so I want to kind of get everyone else up to speed so we can all move through together at one pace. So everything I'm kind of working on right now, and literally I'm spending a couple of days every week working on this content, and it's all leading towards kind of like building a solid path for all of us to have all these necessary tools to be able to negotiate better money, to be able to work on building our skill sets up while also working on figuring out the next few steps of where we strategically want to go in our career to kind of get to that next level that we want to be in, especially with 2017 right around the corner. It's now or never for a lot of us. So I think that this is a really exciting time. I'm excited about doing all of this. It's killing me. I was getting a lot of weird looks last night just because I was so exhausted. I could not even pick up a glass of wine because I was just so tired that, like this really has been taking it out of me. But at the same time, it's something that I'm really proud and happy to have done so far, and I have a long way to go. So this is just the beginning, like I said, but it's been really cool. Now, that all being said, this episode, which I'm about to unveil, is actually, like I said, I was going to do a follow-up to the last episode, but I decided to push that back a bit. Instead, this is just a snippet of a review that I did inside of the mentorship that I run. So every week I'm doing multiple reviews, like webinars, with the live action series and the FX TD Mentorship. And what we'll do is because we're all over the world, I'll hold one in the morning and I'll hold another one at night. And that way, no matter what time zone we're in, we're able to call in and be a part of that. So it's also been cool because we just switched to a new platform. We have like webcams, all these other things. I never thought in a million years I would actually use a webcam in the reviews. I'm like, no one wants to see my face, but it's actually been kind of cool. We're just going to turn them all on, and not everyone uses them or has to, but a lot of us just going to have it on, and it's kind of cool actually getting to see like a room of people while we're all talking about critiquing their work, answering questions about how to improve their work, or giving advice about certain things. And this episode, or not this episode, this one session, I decided to talk a bit about like answering questions about money and things like that. Usually it's more technical. I'll be answering, questions about Max or Maya, Houdini, or RealFlow, or scripting, or whatever we're talking about, compositing and Nuke. That's the sort of thing we'll usually talk about. But this one, I want to talk a bit about money. It kind of started with someone saying, hey, how much money can I make in LA? And I didn't want to just kind of say, you can make $150 an hour, or you can make, $1,500 a day, or whatever it's going to be. I wanted to kind of give the bare basics of like, look, honestly, starting out, especially if you're new to the industry, you might get like a low number, like 200 a day, but let me instead talk about how you can work your way into getting more money. And it kind of refers back to a lot of episodes I've already put out, such as the Making $1,000 an Hour episode, which was episode 63, I believe. It talks about a lot of that stuff, which is just core ways to negotiate differently and creatively rather than doing the traditional approaches that we're kind of used to doing. And there's a lot of great stuff we get into here. And I just figured, why not share this? This is 30 minutes, I think, of an episode, of like one review. That's usually like most reviews are about an hour and a half. So this is 30 minutes of one when I'm doing like a couple a week, all the way through the year. So just a small tidbit, but I thought it'd be fun to share. And that being said, I'm going to do a live career intensive pretty soon. I've done a few of those publicly, which were a lot of fun. And I'm going to line one up for December because I think that will be really cool to do. And I want to make it December just because it's, as I record this, November 1st, so happy Halloween. This is November 1st, so this will give us a month. So there's time for us all to sign up because I want to get as many people in this as we can. And the way that this will work is that half the episode, I'm probably going to go through a lot of stuff. I might even get you guys to vote on, hey, these are the top subjects I want to cover. Rate which ones you want. I'm going to cover the top 5 and go really in depth with them. And so half of it will be more me talking about a lot of the stuff that you want to know specifically about, like questions you might have, that sort of thing. You can submit questions. But on top of that, it'll be a chance for me then to kind of turn the microphone over to all of you guys and get to hear a lot of questions you might have if you want to do that and be able to work with you directly. So I've done these before and they're a lot of fun. Some people might be a bit shy or maybe they're a bit self-conscious about their English. We'll have like a chat thing as well, so you can just quickly type in what you want and I can answer that way as well. Or if you're at work, that sort of thing. So it's completely open-ended, but I think that this will be a great way to kind of end the year, set our goals up for next year, so you have like a kind of clear idea of like what the next step is for you. What are the obstacles you're running into right now with your career? Some of this might be more geographic, or maybe you need to learn certain skills within your industry, whatever the specifics might be. So this is something that's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to be a part of this, all you need to do is sign up at www.allanmckay.com/2017 intensive. So I'll leave a link in the show notes. It's probably going to be the easiest way. If you just go to this episode number, so 68, or in German, 68. So yeah, 68. That would be right, I think. It's been a long time. So this would be really cool. If you want to get in there, just go to Allan McKay, So ALLANMCKAY.com/68. And there'll be a link to sign up in the show notes, and that will be for the live career intensive. And then from there, like I said, I'll send an email. You can vote on what subjects you want or submit specific questions that you have. And this will be a chance for me to go through, and I'll be able to really base the content of the whole webinar on these questions you have. So I think the key thing is going to be about what your goals are for next year, or what are the roadblocks that you think are stopping you or preventing you from getting to that next step in your career. And, this isn't just for juniors. It isn't just for people who are wanting to switch careers. This is for people who have 10, 15 years experience. I mean, even today, I was talking with a friend of mine who's been in the industry longer than me. I think he's been doing this for 22 years. And I was talking with him about his next step, how he can kind of transition into the areas that he wants to get into, so that way he can kind of get the money, the security that he's kind of looking for where he's at. And I think that a lot of us, when we get into our 30s, we start to kind of realize like, hey, I love what I do, but I don't want to be killing myself 24 hours a day working, ridiculous hours on deadlines. So I want to position myself in a way that, I'm working on more long form projects, or I'm working more in managing or supervising projects, not doing a lot of the in the trenches work that a lot of us love doing in the very beginning. So how would I transition into a supervisor at a fairly big studio so that way I can get the money that I feel I'm worth, rather than working at a big studio or a small studio in roles that I'm not really wanting to do 10 years from now, whatever that might be. So, I mean, this is very much aimed at a lot of us, whether it's in games, film. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to do that, just go to episode 68, so allanmckay.com/68. And that all being said, let's move into this clip, this video. Well, it's not a video, this audio clip. I actually have a video I may put up at some point, which is basically just like a screen share, but also has the webcams and all that stuff on it. There is going to be some numbers and stuff that I'm, writing down and kind of talking with my hands, I guess, or my pen, my Wacom, while I'm doing this. But for the most part, it should make sense. There may be some background noise here and there. I apologize for that. I had everyone's microphones unmuted, so anyone could talk anytime, or at least I had like 5 people's mics unmuted, not everyone. But this clip is about 30 minutes long. So let's dive in, and I'll share some more information at the very end. In general, like a lot of the things that we might be scared about or concerned about are actually maybe not really real. It's just more we kind of don't really evaluate what's logical and what isn't, and we're just going to rely on that default trigger of, that's a risk and I don't want to take risks, because that's kind of how we're wired. That's why we're afraid of heights. That's why a lot of things, like we're kind of wired to protect ourselves so we don't walk off a cliff, all these kind of things that genetically we inherited, hundreds of thousands of years ago and we still have today. Same thing with, if you want to get into like the whole psychology behind it, like same reason people are afraid of public speaking, everything like that, is it's embarrassment, because when you're living in a village of like 50 or 100 people and you embarrass yourself, then you're not going to find a mate. So all these things going to play into it. And because of that, we inherit these things, and later on, now when we have the internet and all these things, we're all connected with 7 billion people, we're still afraid of embarrassing ourselves with that 0.0001% that is going to forget about it a day later because our attention spans are so short. So this is kind of how we are now, where we have to kind of beat those illogical fears that we have. So I didn't actually mean to get into the whole like career stuff, but I kind of figured if we got a bit of time, like I don't mind spending another 15 minutes just going to talk about the stuff, but it could be fun. I've been meaning to do like a career intensive for a while, and I keep mentioning it, but it's just been one of those things with the live action course. I just need to kind of make that a priority. But in terms of salaries, it really depends. It really varies a lot. Like LA isn't as expensive as people think. It's just more about where you live. Like I live in Santa Monica and I want to buy a house, and like I'm really torn all the time between, do I move to somewhere cheaper in LA or do I stay in Santa Monica? I would never buy a place in Santa Monica. It's just fucking rip off. Like 1.2 million is the average housing price for a house out here. And you look at houses out here and they're not very good. Whereas then I looked in Portland or Washington, like Seattle, Washington, and for $500,000 you'll buy a mansion. Like it's insane. Or South Carolina for $150,000. So LA isn't, compared to some cities, it isn't that bad, but it's more about where you live. So with salaries and everything else, like I will just kind of more talk about expenses first and say that if you live next to the beach, like if you live in Santa Monica or Malibu or Beverly Hills, like it's going to be pricey. Beverly Hills isn't near the beach, but just pricey places. But if you live in areas that are a little bit further out, El Segundo or just Mar Vista, anywhere it's kind of a little bit further out, like, it might be a 20-minute commute instead of a 5-minute commute to where you're working. Suddenly the prices drastically drop. I've got friends of mine who bought like massive 5-bedroom houses for $200,000, but they live like an hour away. But then again, LA, everything's an hour away with traffic. So, so with salaries, like you're more going to keep in mind like the cost of living. That's like a big factor. But it really depends. Like if you're looking at freelancing, you could be making $500 a week. You could be making $3,000-$4,000 a week. With overtime and everything, it's not unheard of to make $5,000 or more a week if you're killing yourself. I knew a guy at Weta who was making $20,000 a week in, just basically working a lot of freaking hours. So you can do a lot of money. Like you make a lot of money doing this, and it's also the whole side hustle. And that's kind of like where I was talking about with entering the industry, is that you kind of learn those tools by being creative, so that way you can make additional money selling models or selling presets or doing freelance on the side. A lot of different things you can do there too. But I'd say like I'm a little bit out of the loop with this. But I mean, for me, like I usually will offer people like $400 a day as like a good base rate if they're working for me, and like that's kind of like a good freelance rate. $400 a day, I think, is like $100K a year. So that's kind of like I got that kind of from Blur, where back in the day, whenever people did overtime, as in like they were called in to do overtime, they would get given like a 400-day freelance rate, and that's kind of like good money. But like some places you might start out a lot lower. It just kind of depends where you're at. So maybe you're making $200 a day, or maybe you're making $20 an hour starting out. I've got a few guys right now that are making like $18, $20 an hour. So I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great, but it's not bad either. Let me check what the hell that is. Like 18 times, let's say. Well, okay, it's like 200 a day, I guess, is what it would be. So I mean, 200 a day, I don't know what that equals in, and that would be like kind of on the low end, but 200 times 5 times 52 or something. So that's like 50K. So I mean, starting out, if you're a junior, then you might be making more kind of like that kind of rate. But whereas it's pretty easy to kind of ramp up pretty quick. I kind of feel like it's very easy to kind of get up to 80 or 100K mark very easily. It's more what I kind of feel, and I guess, so I'm kind of getting tongue-tied about this just because it's such a bigger question. And I think it's only because I look at it from a lot of different perspectives, because I've worked more on the client side and the production side. And so for me, that's why I put out a lot of podcast episodes where I'm talking about negotiation, where, I don't say like go and ask for an hourly rate, rather negotiate, like figure out, like put yourself in their shoes, and it's the best way to figure things out. But in a way, it kind of justifies like how people pay too. So here's the thing. A lot of times when producers are budgeting shit, if you're coming as a freelancer, it's very easy for them to say, by the way, I just remembered I hate this pen tool. I thought goodbye Epic Pen, but it's actually really shit, but let's give this a shot. So in fact, I'm just Epic Penning this. I need to draw because I think it might make a bit more sense here.
Yes.
Yay. So basically, I was going with this, when you're looking at it from a producer's perspective, what they're going to do, and I actually am going to do a bunch of videos and stuff about this content, this subject pretty soon. But with bidding, things like that, they're going to say, okay, we need to have a environment artist build this environment here. So usually modeling the environment, doing it all shit, that's about 2 weeks. So that's going to be 10 days. And at our studio rate, that's going to be 1K a day. So what is that? I'm being terrible at math right now, but is that 10K?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it's too early in the morning, but what's that?
10,000.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure my zeros are in the wrong place because I'm running on fumes here. So let's just say doing this is going to be 10K, but at the same time, that's what we're charging out. So as long as, like, if we're charging out 1,000 a day studio rate, and there's different studios all work differently, but typically a lot of studios, what they'll do is they'll have a set day rate of what they do. So in fact, screw it, I'm getting into this. So all right, here's my empty canvas. So this is the way that studios typically work, is that they might say, okay, my rate is 1,000 US per day, and per artist per day. And that's maybe what they do. And what they'll do then is they say, all right, so that's the studio rate, so SR. And then what they're going to do is say, okay, when we hire an artist, if we get them for 400 a day, awesome. But if it's going to be 800 a day, then, that's going to get tighter. But this is our profit margin. So if I say I hire an artist for 500 a day, then that means that there's $500 profit coming in. But that's not profit, because typically when we budget on a job, we're going to say, okay, that landscape that was in the background, the environment artist is going to be, let's say 400 a day. So it's going to be 4,000. So that's 6K we've got left over. But then we're going to say, okay, well, we also need someone to do clouds, let's say, so an effects artist, and he might take 3 days to do that at 400 a day also. So let's just say 400 seems to be the standard. So it's going to be 1,200. Meanwhile, we actually get, so I said it would be 1,000 a day. It'd be each category might be different, but typically it's like 1,000. So there might be some things like a senior supervisor might be on a project and he might be 1,200 or 1,500 or whatever. But typically a lot, and this depends on the studios. This is typically what they'll do is they'll break everything down and they'll say, okay, 1,000 per day per artist for a lot of these things, unless it's something like roto, then that might be 400 a day or whatever. And you break all this shit down. But then the thing is that leftover margin here is that's actually going to cover all the overhead that doesn't go in here. So depending on your bidding method, you're not bidding like on the bid sheet saying, hey, we have a receptionist and we need to pay her bills. We have a shitload of Red Bull in the fridge for free. We got to cover that. None of that shit lands on the bid. So this number here, which right now, what was this, like 4,000? So I guess like we have like 10K. Again, just fuzzy math to add up correctly. But whatever it's going to be, I guess it's 1,200, then yeah, so 3,800. 2,800, sorry. I'm screwed today, sorry guys. So 2,800, so where are we at? 8,800. So I can't believe I actually had to think about that for a sec. So either way, let's just say we have 10K, but the whole point is that you cover all those expenses in there. So the producer, all that kind of shit doesn't land in that pool. So typically what happens is you have your original cost of the artist. So let's just say artist cost. And then you're going to have like the bid amount, like the studio bid basically. But then you have your margin. But that's also where a lot of the additional overhead comes in. So electricity is going to be a big one. Studio rent is going to be a big one. Maintenance, like IT, all that shit. So suddenly you've got like this massive expense list in here that you've got to also take care of. And because like when you write up a bid, you're not going to be adding in like, oh, by the way, on weekends or on Fridays, we all have like a free massages. So we're going to put that in here as well. Like that shit doesn't go in there. So you have like the overhead cost here. So you need to kind of figure out like usually, and this is kind of pretty standard with all sales across the world. Like I was talking with one of my friends who back in Australia, who we went to high school together. He went one way, I went another, but basically he became like a very successful drug dealer. And he was asking me one day, like, this is when I ran my studio. He's like, what's the typical profit margin that you make for doing a movie or whatever? And I'm like, typically we aim for 30%. It doesn't always end up that way, but that's typically what we say. And like, I just remember him saying with a big smile, it's like, it's funny how it always seems to be about 30%. So whether it's drugs or selling Subway or doing effects, it always seems to be 30%. So that's kind of like what we go for is like you essentially have like a lot of additional overhead that comes into the leftovers. And that's why you might say, okay, 400 a day, 1,000 is what you charge out. And then from there, you've got the additional like overhead. And then from there, you've got your profit. And you just want to make sure you stay in the red. Sorry, stay in the red. Don't stay in the red. You want to stay in the black. So that's kind of typically how it works. Now, I mention this because usually what's going to happen is a producer might come along and say, okay, well, if this is the case, then like we've put down 1,000. Typically, we're looking for 400-ish. So if you were to go in and staff and everything, usually the head of 3D, something like that, is going to be working like talking with you, and they're the ones who are going to be talking you down. But like if you go in and like for me, this has always been like a bit of an Achilles heel. But if you go in and say, okay, well, I want 400 a day, a lot of producers are going to be like, okay, yeah, that works because it's in our it's in our margin of like what we're expecting. So as long as you understand like what their needs are, then you can, unless you're blatantly junior, a lot of times they're going to say, okay, this number works, so we're cool with that. It's only going to be when you're dealing with bigger studios where you have like the head of 3D or something like that who's going to be like, well, I feel like you're more like 250 mark or whatever it's going to be, because they're more looking at you specifically and pricing you out rather than a producer who's going to be looking at the actual profit and loss sheets or the bid and looking at all the expenses. Now, that backfires for me a lot. And this is where I personally don't argue about money. I hate haggling about cash. I actually thought about getting a manager a while back just because I thought it'd be a fun experiment, even though they're going to take like 10% of my profits. I just thought it'd be a fun experiment to have someone else negotiate on my behalf. But these days I love negotiating. I love kind of just like fucking with that a bit more. But like, I'm one of the people that if someone is I might have to mute someone in a minute, but I'll see. But basically, I'm one of those people, like if someone at dinner is to say like, oh, you know what, like, you had this on, if you had 2 Cokes and I had 1, I'm going to be like, fuck it, I'll pay for the meal, you get the next one. I don't want to like worry about that shit. I'm the same way with negotiating money, where it's like, look, let's say I want $80 an hour, and they say, well, we only budgeted for $60 an hour. I'm going to be like, all right, who cares? That's fine. And that's why I started to flip it on its back and do things a little bit differently now, where I basically approach things as I would if I was producing the job. And the reason is because, and this is why I don't argue, is because some people are going to come and say, I want 150 an hour, which that is fucking ridiculously high. Most people are going to want 50. 50 is a good number. If you're like a senior freelancer, 50 an hour is a good number. You definitely go between 50 to 75 if you're like a good senior freelancer. And that number is like 75 is like definitely on the high end, but it's still pretty acceptable. Higher than that, like 75 to 100 is definitely, there's only going to be some studios that can really do that. So like Pixelmondo, Scanline, Digital Domain, DD's pretty tight these days. A few others, but like some are going to pay pretty well, and other ones are going to have issues where they're like, no, that's not our budget. Now, the reason is, and this is where I was getting at with this whole thing, is that basically the producer is always going to bid like, okay, well, we're looking at 400 a day because we need an FX person. We need an animator, and they might have been, sorry, I'm doing the wrong categories, but 300 a day for animator. Lighting, another 400 a day. This is what they're doing, because they're saying, well, we need 3 lighters, we need 1 FX, we need 2 comp. That's what the producer sees when they're doing a bid. And so then they go and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, here's our budget, blah, blah, blah. Now, what they're doing is they're budgeting based on like the information they have. They're not expecting like, they're saying we need an effects person. They're not expecting, some rock star animator to come in from Pixar who's like, no, I am 1,000 a day. And they're going to say, well, that was what we had. We can't give you that because it's not covering the Red Bull and free massages and whatever else that we, is in our margin. So that's why I don't argue, because I kind of always look at it from the producer's perspective, which is they would have budgeted for 400 a day or whatever for a person who probably has 3 years experience. I'm going to come in with like 20-ish years experience, and that's not their problem. Like that's how I see it. Is like, I'm not going to come in and say, well, I need 4,000 a day or something ridiculous because I have all this experience, and haven't you seen I made a course on doing particles and After Effects or whatever the hell it is. I'm not going to go and like have this grandiose thing where I'm demanding all the shit, because I know it's not their problem. They weren't expecting someone to come in who's going to be way more expensive. So there are going to be projects where I'm going to be like, look, this is my rate, work with it. Otherwise, no problem, I'll take a different job. But I gotta put myself in their shoes. Now, I put out an episode not too long ago. I think it was like episode 65 or 64, which was negotiating $1,000 per hour. And that's where, rather than going in and saying that, because like if you say, okay, I want it $750 a day, whereas everyone else charges $400, and you come in and you're like, I want this because I'm better than everyone else. They're like, well, this is what's in the budget. You could easily say, well, look, you're getting a junior to come in, or you're getting a mid-level person to come in, and that's why they're charging that, because it's going to take them twice as long to do it. But I'm going to be twice as quick because I'm more experienced, so give me $750. That's still not going to mean shit to them, because it's like, okay, you tell me that you're going to be faster and everything, but at the end of the day, like, how the fuck do I know? Like, you're going to be more expensive is all that they have on there. And the worst thing and the hardest thing for producers on projects is the fact that they're not managing anything. They're not physically doing anything. You're the ones doing the work, which means it's all out of their hands, and it's such a stressful position to be in, where you have people working. And like, I've done this too, where I've only once caught myself doing it where I was like, shit, I don't want to be that guy. But like, I'll see an artist watching YouTube while they work, and we've got a deadline, and I don't want to be the dick who's just like, hey, what the fuck? Like, I want your full attention on this. But you got to understand, like, people are going to work, and they're not going to work at the rate that you want them to. They're still their responsibilities. So when it comes down to it, it's very stressful for a producer to think like, all right, this whole ship is moving along, and I don't have any control over it. If there's like a massive storm, something comes along, I cannot steer the ship. I cannot do anything other than check in with people and make sure everything's going well and have meetings. And so it's very hard when someone comes in really expensive. Suddenly the spotlight's on you. It's this person, like, every minute counts. And so trying to justify to someone like, hey, I'm worth twice as much as someone else, without like them being able to measure results other than at the very end, which maybe they're going to come in and realize, fuck, he took exactly as long as everyone else, which does happen because at the end of the day, you're waiting on clients to come back, all that kind of shit. So it ends up being, maybe more expensive. So to them, it's a massive risk. What I've started doing, and I just always do these days, and again, you've got to be in the right position to do it, and it does take a lot of negotiation, but I always come in and usually I'm just going to say like, okay, what's your budget and schedule? And they mightn't say what their budget is, but I'm just going to say like, look, give me all the information you can about the project. What do you need? Blah, blah, blah. What's your delivery schedule? So for me, then I can say, okay, so I need to do a mountain, water, blah, blah, blah. How long is the goal going to take me? And if I can figure out on my end, my own little mini bid, I can come back and say, okay, I can do all of this stuff. And it's probably going to come in at like $22,000 to do it all. And I can deliver it by this date. And what they can then do is say, okay, shit, that's within the budget we have, because they budgeted for 30K. So they're actually making 8K. So they're like, fuck yeah, that's great. The big thing though is like, A, that's not going to work for everyone, but B, the most important aspect of this is really going to make it all work is the fact that if you're able to come in, and this is more for senior people, but you can say, look, it isn't so much about the money. What you're getting is the assurance that the job's going to deliver without hiccups. You can bring in someone who is at, and this, you can do this, by the way, I know I'm jumping around a lot, I apologize, but you can do all this without doing these like massive number here. You could do it with the 750 to 400, but what it really comes down to is saying, like, what you're getting for that isn't the speed. It isn't the fact that I'm going to do things faster, I'm going to do things better. What it really comes down to is the fact that I'm coming as a senior, I'm not going to make mistakes, and the job is not going to derail. If this is the date that you want to get delivered, it's going to deliver without any hiccups, and that's what you're really paying for. Because that is what the producer's problem really is. If you're able to tell them that the thing that they're buying is the fact that it's not going to have any problems, that is the number one thing that they really think about. And when you start to think about what a producer really wants, or whoever you're talking to, like what their needs are, it changes everything. Because if you think of them as like, okay, a producer doesn't have any control, they're on that ship, the storms, all that shit that I said, what it really comes down to is they're worried that things can go wrong, that are going to cost more money to fix, or the client is going to get pissed off or scared and walk away. And I've seen jobs where we've lost literally millions of dollars because one job, we won it for Samsung. It was the first HD TV to come out in Australia. And we did that job. And the client literally across the street from us came in and they sent them an animatic. I was like rendered and looked nice, whereas the animatics we were sending were black and white play blasts, and whereas theirs were rendered just as like a pitch. So we had won the job, and then they sent ones that were a lot better. And just because we were sending these black and white play blasts, and they were sending nicely rendered stuff as an additional pitch, they actually pulled this $2 million job from us and gave it to them just because like one had color and one didn't, basically. And that's the kind of shit that can happen. And but what it really comes down to is the producers are scared shitless of that, because anything can go wrong. And like what you're essentially selling them is quality assurance. You're saying, I'm more expensive, but the reason is because you're going to get the job. It's not going to derail. It's going to look fucking amazing. On top of that, I can probably have a lot better rapport with the client. I can deliver a lot more stuff to them, give them a lot more options. Essentially, they're going to like you more, and we're going to get it done ahead of time. Like these are the things that the producer thinks about. So as long as you're able to talk their talk or speak like what they're really seeking beyond the numbers, then that's what's really going to appeal to them. So, you know, this is like the long-winded version of it all, but essentially that's how I would be able to justify asking for more money. And that's why when you come in, you know, you got to think about what the person you're talking to really wants, rather than like, hey, I'm a 3D guy, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do work. And this is why I did that talk in Paris a while ago, which I'm pretty sure you guys have seen. If not, I'll send a link to it. But the whole talk was based around the fact that if you're able to show the end result, in other words, like go out and do like what we're doing in the live action series, if you're able to show a finished shot that's comped, that has like a live action plate, that has everything finished, that you've put the time in and made that one shot or that one sequence really fucking rock, that's what the clients really want at the end of the day. Because if you go a 3D studio and you show that, rather than just showing just some effects or some, you know, tutorial or whatever, you're actually showing a finished piece, it changes everything. Because with a producer, that's like, you know, making sure shit goes right. But when we're applying for a job in 3D, the head of 3D is going to want to know that you can do the work. Because for them, it's more about, you know, am I going to need to fucking like manage this person? And, you know, I've talked to so many supervisors where when they look at artists' work, they're like, yeah, you know, like I don't like that one thing in their reel, and that makes me think that maybe they're not good. It's actually their supervisor that was really good. And they're already thinking about like the fact that, you know, if this person isn't very good, they're going to be the ones who are going to need to literally make 50 versions, keep revising shit. They want someone who can do like version 1, 2, 3, get it out the door. So even if you're able to like do that as like the icing on the cake, when you send your work in, send a breakdown, say, I did these shots, I did them all in about 2 or 3 days each, and, you know, did about this many revisions, show your process. The more that they can see how you work, the more they're going to be like, okay, you know what, you don't have much experience in production, but like, if you're able to do that in 3 days, then hell yeah, you're hired, or, okay, I can see that you can take a shot through to finish. Whatever it is going through that person's head that is going to make them be concerned, that's what you got to work around. So if I see people, and this is why I pick on everyone's gravity and velocity, all shit, is because I see so many people's effects work that might look good, but it's really floaty or just doesn't look right. And it means like, shit, I'm going to be here like constantly revising people's work to look real when these are the basic fundamentals, like make it fall realistically. That shouldn't be too hard to do. So when someone does it right, it makes me think, great, they're able to self-evaluate their shots. That's important to me. And that's why I kind of really hammer you guys on like the really core aspects, because God of War, I hired someone. One of the very few times I've had to fire someone, I've been pretty good at like, if someone isn't working out, I'm able to make them work out one way or another. But God of War is one of the few times I've had to fire someone. It's actually someone I've known for 20 years, since I was 14. And it's because he was making his setup so complex, yet he wasn't locking down like shit like gravity. So it got to the end where everything wasn't working, it wasn't looking good. But more importantly, it was taking about 3 days to get an iteration out. And like, if the gravity and shit like that isn't even looking right, then I don't want to have to like go and do multiple tweaks in that shit and wait days to get a result. I want to be able to see a real-time update. Even if it looks like shit, we can make it look good later. So again, that's the sort of thing that if someone's able to communicate whatever I'm concerned about, that is how you're able to negotiate your worth. So if you want to say, hey, I just moved from wherever to LA, I want $60 an hour, and they say, well, you've only been working for 2 years, you can say, well, look, here's the live action stuff that I did. Basically once I went through all the fundamentals of learning it all, I went and did my own shots, and I did this whole sequence of shots in a month. And they can come back and say, you did all that in a month. More importantly, you're able to take it through to completion rather than just showing a test. That's the sort of thing that's going to make people be like, fuck yeah, like this person is someone that I can hire. I know I can give them the work. Maybe they're going to be even a bit slower than the other people, but they're able to take the shot all the way through, rather than me constantly up to like version 67 because this person just isn't getting it. I'm going to constantly, pointing out the obvious shit, and it's taking up my time. That's what a supervisor worries about. So I'll leave that there, but like, I'm just talking about two people now, but like, you're talking about a producer, they're talking about knowing that the project's going to go without a hiccup and that the client's going to be happy, the client's going to be over the moon. If the work is great, that's the additional bonus. So that's what a producer looks for, whereas like a supervisor, a head of 3D is more worried about, do I need to wrangle these people and like take time out of my day to manage this person? Because that is where I'm not going to want to hire that person. Whereas if they can show that they're self-managing, that they can understand a workflow, the pipeline, all that shit, that makes me want to hire that person, because I know that I can put them in a chair tomorrow, they can start doing the work. And that's ultimately what what any of us would look for in an artist. So think of all the scenarios, like wherever you're going, think about what they really want, and then you're able to offer that up. Last thing I'll just add on is like, there's a guy I met in Austin recently, and I was talking to him the other day, and it's more about because I want to start finally jumping on YouTube and doing some YouTube shit, and he's like a YouTube expert. So I was just like, fucking tell me like what I need to fix, because my YouTube thing is a pile of shit. I never touched it, never did anything with it. And, I understand the lingo and how it all works with consulting. So it's just interesting seeing it done to me, where this guy's a young guy, he's like 21, but he's really fucking smart. And basically he said, like, talk to me for 15 minutes about your business and what you want and blah, 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 blah. And then I did. And then basically he would repeat it all back to me. And like, again, I know this stuff, but I can't help but think, oh my God, he understands me. He knows me so well. And all he's doing is essentially figuring out what I want and understanding me, so that way he can tell me or give me what I want back. So that's really what it comes down to with life. The more you actually shut the fuck up and listen, the more you're able to give the people that what they want, because you know what they want, rather than being about you. It's a bit of a rant, it's a bit of a long picture thing, but I guess like I don't want to say, when Jonathan's like, what's the average rate in LA? I don't want to say $25 or $50. I want to say like, look, figure out what you're worth and what you want, what you can live on. But more importantly, figure out how studios or how people work, what their needs or hopes, dreams, and fears are going to be. And in terms of like producers, it's more about like losing a client or looking bad themselves, or having to hire a really expensive person in the end because you dropped the ball and weren't able to deliver. So that's where, if you're able to say, I'm more expensive, but what you get is you don't need to worry about that shit. In fact, I can probably help keep the vehicle running. Everyone around me, I'm able to kind of help manage. That's the sort of shit where they're going to be like over the moon. And same thing with supervisors and everything else is more about, they don't want to be the ones managing everything all the time. They want to be able to check in and say, is everything going good? Cool. So whoever you're dealing with, figuring out what they want, giving it to them is how you're able to get the money that you want, other than saying I'm really good and that's why, or I have 10 years experience, that's why. I know people who've got 20 years experience and suck. So, it really just comes down to figuring out how to pitch yourself correctly. So I don't know. Hopefully that helped a little bit. I'm not sure. Yeah. No, but I will wrap things up. I know we've gone for an hour, and I know there's a couple more people who have trickled in. Just a heads up to the guys who jumped in, because I know we're all testing out this new platform. I'm going to promote you guys to panelists. I guess I'll do that now, just so we're all in here. But basically, one thing to be aware of is just your names. Just to just be aware of that. Maybe what happens, I'm not sure how it does it. Maybe it uses your computer name. I'm not sure. So or your login. I mean, so just be aware that you can change your name. Sorry, I'm totally burping right now. So you can change your name, because that'll just be handy, because like last night we did a session and there was people like HP or Rune, even though Rune was Eduardo and HP was Shabana, stuff like that. So just be aware, like, to set up your names if you can, so that way I know who I'm talking to. So yeah, full names would definitely be helpful. But I'm going to wrap things up here. I know we kind of did a bit of a very different session to usual, but I don't know if this is kind of... Oh, by the way, I don't know. Okay, Render Beast is Taryn. Cool, man. I don't know how to change names. Like, I've got a different interface to you guys, but
I think probably at the beginning when you register, there's your email, and at the bottom, I think it's name. I think I don't. Come on.
Yeah, no.
Cool.
I actually wrote my full name, not last name. It didn't pop up anywhere.
Okay. Well, I'll look into that. I'll make a note about that. One sec.
Hey, Alan.
Yep.
I'd just like to echo one thing what you were talking about. I thought it was great stuff, and that's really the any industry you're
What do you want?
Cool. Actually, give me 1 sec. I'm going to mute everyone and then I'm going to mute everyone and then unmute Christopher. Sorry, because before we had 4 or 5 people, but now it's getting a bit crazy. So, Christopher, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, no worries. I was just going to say, I just want to echo what you were talking about. It happens in all industries and over time. And I thought what you went through was really good. So,
cool. That's great, man. Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I feel like there's so much of the stuff that we can talk about. And if you guys want, I keep mentioning doing a career intensive. And for anyone who hasn't been in one of those with me, basically what it is more, usually what I'll do is half a session is more me kind of going on a bit of a rant about whatever subjects I want to cover. So let's say negotiating or getting your foot in the door or whatever it's going to be, dealing with certain situations, whatever. Then the second part is more kind of talking with everyone about their situations they're going through. So for instance, if let's say you've got goals for next year that you want to move to another country and let's say you want to work in the US or whatever it's going to be, but you need to figure out okay, how do I get a work visa? But more importantly, how do I get work and how do I negotiate or tell an employer to give me work or whatever it's going to be. So that's definitely something that I find is really effective, because 9 times out of 10, whatever one person's going through, there's so much vital information that comes from it that everyone else is able to get it. Even if they live in the US and that's not an issue, it's still about, oh, wow. Because if it was getting a work permit and all that stuff, the number one thing I would say, and I say this with friends of mine that I work with who are all artists and they have nothing to do with visual effects. They actually do traditional painting. It's the exact same stuff they go through every day. So half the things I come up with are all even stuff related to those fields. So I mean, let's say someone, I'll just quickly go on this for a second, but say that someone wants to work in the US and they keep emailing studios and they don't get a reply. I would guarantee they're probably saying too much too soon. You don't email a studio and say, hey, how are you? Here's all my work. I've got all this experience. I'm really good. I don't work in the US, so you're going to need to fly me over there as well as pay for a visa, which usually takes this long, blah, blah, blah. Can you get me all that stuff? I'd love to start for you in the next 2 months. They're going to be like, what the fuck? This is too much. So it would be like a 1-2 punch or the whole jab, right hook kind of approach, where it's basically you would send an email, pique their interest, get them interested in hiring you, discuss that further, and then once you start to trickle in the other logistics about it, it's not a big a deal. Once someone's interested in you, that's when you can say, okay, by the way, I live in this country, hope there's not an issue, and they're like, oh, okay, great, well, so you would need a work visa? Okay, well, we'll look into that. So as long as you kind of sell yourself to them first, and then once they're interested, you can start bringing the other stuff. So I'm just bringing it up as an example where someone in the US might be like, okay, well, I don't give a fuck about visas, but that's really interesting because whenever I apply for jobs, I'm always saying, hey, how's it going? I don't know if you have any work going on right now, but I'd really like a job. blah, blah, blah. By the way, like my dog needs surgery, so I'd really like to have some money up front, or whatever you're trying to throw your whole life story in there. And that's when they realize, maybe they got to taper it back a bit. Because I collect, I get probably 2 or 3 job applications a day from people, and I actually collect them all because I want to do a bit of an email teardown on like what people are doing right, what people are doing wrong. And the reason for that is because people do email their life story. I've got so many like things where some things are really great and other things are just blatantly wrong that I basically want to, someone washing their dishes on the webcam. Sorry, okay, eating. Sorry, Ash. It looked like a dish or something up close. I'm like, what the hell is that? Sorry, buddy. So yeah, there's going to be those situations where I lost my train of thought now, but yeah, basically you might figure out like there's certain things that you're doing wrong, and it's just the first initiation, the first contact is always really critical, because if it's very easy for someone just to kind of like delete the email and keep moving on with the day, but if you get the conversation going, it's a lot easier to kind of then make that grow. And that's why like you want to keep your introductions pretty super short, to the point, and get them interested, rather than like some people send me a life story and pictures of their cat or whatever it's going to be, and it's just like, dude, like I don't care. Same way that I've seen some people where they CC 100 studios on there, so it's just like, hi, I'd like to apply for a job. I love your work in your studio, and you can see it's been sent to 100 different studios. It's just like, come on, like what the fuck? I've actually almost wanted to group reply to everyone about that. I'm just like, I don't want to embarrass the person more, but I want to do like an email teardown just without including names, just because there's so many great examples of stuff that we mightn't even realize ourselves what we're doing wrong. And at the same time, there's some that I thought were really brilliant. I'm like, this is actually well written. And I've wanted to email them back, say like, look, my hat goes off to you just because most people like suck at sending applications. So you've done a really great job. So yeah, I mean, all that kind of stuff I definitely would love to talk about sometime. So maybe we can line up one of those. In fact, it's up to you guys if you want to do this, but I would love some feedback. And I'm always asking for stuff like this because maybe I'll send out a questionnaire beforehand, but what I'll do is I'm going to set a goal. You guys have just inspired me by me talking for an hour about shit. But what I'll do is let's set up a career intensively. Let's set up like a webinar where we can talk specifically about our career, about where we want to go, any kind of shit that's popping up. Like, hey, even if it's a bit more hands-on to what we're currently doing. So like, for instance, like if you were to say, hey, I'm doing FX TD and I finished it all and I want to cut a reel and I want to get a really good job in LA next year or whatever. What do I need to do? And so it might be like, okay, let's pick a few of the stuff that we've done so far and salvage that and like really make some money shots for the rest of the the year or whatever, like whatever it's going to be. So we can kind of talk about that, make actionable steps. So that way the next 2 or 3 months we can really hit it hard and try and get the job that we want next year. So I don't know, like what I'll do is I'll set something up. I'll send an email out next week about it, and we can kind of get rock and rolling with that. What I'd love from all of you guys, Render Beast just left. Damn it, Taryn. So Marco, Ash, Christopher, Jonathan, all of you guys, if you want to shoot me a quick email, actually, Render, you guys are back. Sorry, I didn't realize you were in viewers. So like Taryn and who's the other one? Alexa. So like all of you guys, if you want to send me a quick email and just tell me like what are some subjects you'd like to see, whether they are actual things that you guys are going through, like obstacles you're in or goals you have, or whether it's just more specifically like, hey, I'd love to know more about negotiating money, or if you can give me actual rates for these disciplines, or right now I'm in lighting and I want to switch to effects, or whatever it's going to be. Like I'll say a quick story, one final story, but I've got a friend of mine who actually did a lot of the tracking for the first part of the live action series, and basically he did a few of my CG Society courses. He studied under Paul Neal, and he wanted to get into effects, and he got offered a job at a really big studio in Toronto. But they basically said you can either take a job in camera tracking or you can take a job as like roto, basically. So he's starting from the ground up, and he's asking me like, which should I do? And for me, like compositing, I think it actually was junior compositor. It wasn't roto, it was junior compositor. And for me, that makes sense. Like, okay, well, effects and compositing go hand in hand, and like, it's a very critical skill to learn. However, this is actually different because you got to look at the logistics behind that. That if he went and got a job in compositing, the compositor is not going to help him get into effects, because it's completely different departments, and all the compositor is going to care about is his compositors. So the head of 2D is basically going to say, look, I don't want you to get trained up in effects, and I'm not going to give you time to get trained up in effects because I need people on my team. I'm not going to lose one of my people. Whereas if he goes into camera tracking, that's in 3D. And so even though it doesn't directly correlate with effects, by going and taking the effects job instead of the compositing job, it meant that he'd be in the 3D department. And then he could communicate to the head of 3D, hey, I want to get into effects. And it's exactly what happened. And now, because coincidentally, Side Effects is in Toronto as well, he's being sent over to Side Effects to get trained up by them. So, that's something where the head of 3D can invest in you and see like, hey, if you want to get into effects and you're really good in effects already, that's awesome. I can now get a really good effects person, because it's going to be a lot harder to get a good effects person than it is to get a camera tracker. Okay. So, I like that example just because there's going to be a lot of people coming in who was like, okay, well, if I got to decide between these two, compositing would be good because that's going to make my effects better, and I'll be able to slap comp and I'll understand the workflow. Allan always says to do your, the three things that are closest to you. So lighting, effects, and programming is the closest things to effects. But in this case, it's actually kind of counterintuitive because it's going to be a completely different department, and that person isn't going to help you or invest in you to go where you want to go. Whereas going into camera tracking, you're in that person's department and you can move up. So, all these things you got to kind of think about the long term, and sometimes it's not very clear, like the kind of politics you got to play with that. So I'll leave that there, but I'll do a career intensive, but all of you guys, so Alexo, Christopher, Ash, Jonathan, Marco, Render Beast. Sorry, Taryn. So all you guys, I mean, if you guys want to shoot me a quick email, just let me know like what subjects you guys would like to see. If I did a career intensive, like a webinar specifically where I can talk with you guys about your goals and everything that you want to do. And then from there, we can go one-on-one with anyone who wants to raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to do more about this subject or whatever. Let me know. So, sorry, I'm just reading the chat. But yeah, so hopefully that all sounds good. Shoot me an email. So I'm counting on you guys. I'm looking at all of you. I can see your faces. So yeah, please do. Someone talking? That's cool. You can unmute yourself. It's kind of neat. I don't know who's... Oh, Ash. Okay.
Yeah. What's up?
Hey, dude. So who is this? Who is this, by the way?
Natish, dude.
Oh, Nitesh. Hey. Okay, great.
Yeah. So I'm sorry about that. I've just flown in. So yeah, I just came. I was just eating my breakfast. So is this the new chat? When is the next class? All the class, everything, the live feedback is going to be done like this?
Yeah. It'll all be on this platform moving forward.
Cool. I look forward to it. Thanks, man. I'll see you soon.
That's awesome. Are you in London, or where you at right now?
I'm in San Francisco. I just flew in. Got over the jet lag.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, if you make it down to LA, let me know.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll shoot you a mail, definitely.
Sounds good, buddy. Actually, one quick question. Where are you working in San Fran? Or
I'm just on travel right now. I'm going to backpacking for 2 months and then back to India.
Great, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Good talking to you.
Yeah, see you soon.
All right, see you, buddy. Cool, guys. I'm going to wrap things up here, but it's been awesome talking to you guys. I know it's been a very different session to what we're used to, but hopefully in a way is informative. Thanks again, guys, for coming along. And this is a new platform, so let's rock it out. Give me any feedback. Like I said, shoot me an email, but also give me feedback if there's anything that you like, or if you got ideas, because like already talking with Troy, I've already gotten a lot of ideas about like ways that we can make this whole thing work. So let me know.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Alan, I like the platform.
Cool.
I think it's working very well.
Great. Cool. So I'll leave it there, but this has been awesome, guys. So thanks again. Please shoot me an email because I'm going to organize the career intensive. You guys have inspired me. So I'm going to organize that I'll send it out in the coming week, but to schedule all. But if you guys can shoot me an email now just about ideas or subjects that you, would like to see covered, and I'll definitely kind of like work those in there. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully it shared a lot of insight. I apologize for any background noise or any things like that, or if it was difficult to follow because I'm drawing on my screen and referring to numbers on screen. I will be sharing a video of that at some point, or the full video, because it was only a small snippet of the entire thing. But like I said, if you want to join the career intensive I'm going to be hosting at the very end of the year, you can do that by signing up. In the show notes, I'll put a link. I think it's probably the easiest way. So allanmckay.com/68. So 68. And that will be a link there to be able to sign up for the career intensive, which will be in probably mid-December or early December 2016. Okay, so if you're listening to this at a later date, check out the link. If you sign up, you'll still be able to get information about any future ones. I might share a replay as well. So if you missed it, it might send out a video or something like that as well. So it's hard to say this early into it because I want to plan ahead a month. So that way, all of us can get in there and be a part of that. All right. So that all being said, I'm going to leave things there. And next episode, I've got an interview with the CG supervisor for Independence Day Resurgence. I actually recorded this the week that Independence Day came out. but I was on that small hiatus at the time with the podcast, and I wanted to wait a little bit, get things going, and then start posting these episodes. So I've got a lot of really cool interviews coming up, as well as more information. I'm going to be working on a lot of those emails. Like, I'm putting a lot of my time into putting out as much information, videos, PDFs, everything I can at the moment, all to do with our career. And so if you want to get access to all that, again, sign up at episode 68 and you'll be able to get access to everything there. So allanmckay.com/68 for episode 68. And I'll be back next week with Andre Cantorell from Independence Day's Resurgence. Rock on.